All right, my name is Derek Smith. I am doing a critique slash review of Andrew Mueller's uh, POLS essay for 4300. Start off with the theme, which is Europe in crisis, winners and losers. It's not really a theme; it's just more your title. From what I could gather, your theme was, the outcomes of the EU's planning or individual planning by the countries regarding the 2008 crisis in Europe. So you choose to go through this paper and frame your topic through the cases of Cyprus, Greece, Ireland, and Iceland, with Greece and Ireland being the failures and Cyprus and Iceland being the successes, which is pretty fair to say given our readings and what was going on for this semester. Now, you do a pretty good job in laying out what your argument is, regardless of what you say your theme is. So, you just go into that the austerity didn't really work. You go into the successes of Iceland and Cyprus and their economic policies, especially Iceland, investing in the people over the austerity. Now, where your problems in your paper really lie is not with the content, which, there are some problems with the content, but it's more with the issues of grammar and just in general writing of this paper, how it's structured. So one of the first things I'm going to go over is that you use rhetorical questions in about every paragraph, almost like every other sentence in some cases, and that's just excessive and it really weakens your paper. People come, when you're writing a paper, you're giving answers, you're not asking questions so much. You can't ask questions, I guess, but you can use these rhetorical questions every now and then, but the way you're using them is just, quite frankly, annoying. If you're going to ask a question, answer it right after, then what's the point of asking the question if you're just going to give me the answer? There's just more eloquent ways to write that. There's more eloquent ways to do transitions, which it seems like that's what you really rely on to use your transitions, which doesn't reflect well as a writer. Another thing is you use colons in the same manner, where you need a transition. So for example, let's see if I can go in here. For failure, the worst case is Iceland and Ireland. Example success responses include, Iceland and Cyprus. So that could be one sentence, for example, without the colon, and I feel like it would just read much better. And that's just in your first paragraph. You do this again pretty much every paragraph if given the opportunity. And if not, you make the opportunity to use the colon, and I'm just not sure it's working. Well, it's nice to have a conversational tone for papers. Yours is not necessarily written like an academic paper in a lot of cases. For example, intro to paragraph 7, I believe. So what happened to the EU under austerity? A lot. Although the EU reports success in realms of low inflation and debt and unemployment, poverty in many low places, in some countries employment was hitting 20+%. So again, you're using the rhetorical question there, and it's not really that great of a intro as it to begin with. And then using a lot, something you probably shouldn't use in an essay ever, but it just doesn't really do anything for the transition. It's just kind of jarring when you get to countries being forced these guidelines consider austerity. So what happens under austerity? It's you're going to go through it, so why say what happens? Just why say the question if you're just going to go through it immediately after? So with percentages, you use those quite a bit, which is fine. Actually, it's very good for your paper to bring out math and the numbers behind the data that you're talking about. But if you're going to pick a style of way to write percent, either use the sign or write percent. Don't do both. Just isn't very good writing. In this case, it's probably better off to write out percent, because that's usually the style, depending on what APA or AP, MLA, whatever style you're using, that's usually the way you're supposed to do it. Another thing is parentheses go inside the sentence they're referring to. So you have, let's see if I can find a specific example. I have some of my notes here, but you do it quite a few times, and again, you'll find it because you're going to have to go through and redo this at some point anyways. But you overuse parentheses where a simple comma, splitting it, offsetting a statement by commas would work and would be much less jarring. You also put parentheses outside the sentence they're referring to, as I said before, which is grammatically incorrect. Here's one in the fourth paragraph from the bottom. The sentence that you're referring to is, on top of taxation, they have made a drastic cut to their social welfare programs that have ruined their healthcare system and raised their poverty levels far above acceptable thresholds, all while blaming single mothers and the unemployed. Period. Begin parentheses, which at some point reaches the 20 plus percentile. End parentheses. Again, you should probably write out plus instead of just doing the character for plus. It's just not very professional writing. And then for that, which at some point reaches 20 percentile, it's in the next sentence. Technically, it begins the next sentence, which is grammatically incorrect. Either way you look at it. So, I mean, just with that, you should probably not rely on parentheses as much as you do. You also do in the next paragraph, which is, so it begins. So what could these countries do to follow in Iceland's steps? Question mark, again, the rhetorical question. The answer is different for each country. For Iceland, this would actually be a case where using a colon would be very acceptable and actually would increase the quality of this paragraph. For Iceland, it would almost require another Brexit. Period. Begin quotation, or begin parentheses, which may happen if the government shifts. Period. Parentheses. Also, periods go outside the parentheses. So, I'm not really sure what you're trying to go for there. Now, these are a lot of grammatical things that you're just going to have to go online and look on what, just syntax on the proper usage. A lot of these things, it's weird because in a lot of cases you get proper grammar right, and then you just don't do it the next paragraph, which is odd. So I just think it's more of, you just need to proofread this more than you need to learn grammar, I guess, because it seems like you have a good understanding of it in most cases. It's just that you do this throughout the paper. Another thing is you didn't cite a single time in this paper, which is not going to get you a good grade. Like right off the bat, this is like a big part of a research paper is actually proving you've done the research. So you have 7 sources as of now, which again, when you do an MLA, which is what you said you did on your works cited page, you have to put a works cited, like that's the whole thing. You have to put a works cited like as the top of the page and centered with all their sources listed alphabetically, preferably. And you just have a couple sources, and they're not very long. A lot of them aren't very long, and some of them are just newspaper articles, which you could get from anywhere. So in the future, you should probably do a lot more research. I mean, the Ohio University provides access to a great database just through the Alden Library. If you're a student here, you have access to it. So I highly recommend you do that to find more literature of any sort, like journals, news articles, what have you, just something to give your paper more clout, because as of right now, I mean, there's just not a lot of authority backing this up besides what you're saying, like what you're saying, and that's not exactly how a research paper works. You got to find out how to support your facts. Like, for example, seeing that 78.2% of the workforce was in the service sector, primarily tourism, this stagnated the economy. One, why? Why did this happen? Because their inability to improve tax collection made the economy drastically worse. You're saying things, but you're not giving why these things happen. You're saying, causation doesn't necessarily correlate, or doesn't, causation isn't necessarily correlation. So you need to have data that proves what you're saying is actually true. And again, you don't quote anywhere, which hurts your paper a lot. Anywhere, like not a single quote, man. Just I'm not sure how to help you from there, except for you just need to quote and you need to paraphrase or whatever. Just find sources and integrate them into your paper, because as of right now, I mean, there's not a whole lot of substance here that's actually backed up by facts that I can, find. So it makes it hard to kind of do this critique of your essay. So if you, again, just proofread some more, just look at grammatical stuff, especially with parentheses, and try to work on better transitions than just trying to ask a question, a rhetorical question that you're just going to answer anyways. So again, transitions, I mean, just your paper has a nice flow of data, so you're your conclusions and your points logically flow with each other, but the problem is the in between, like the words you use to connect these things, don't really work. And the means in which that you present some of your facts, it just makes it seem like you don't necessarily have the research behind it. So again, just quote more, and not quote more, just like cite more sources, and then edit more, I guess. And that's my best advice for you, man. Good luck.